In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what
Rich
you
Banter
can do
is
for
being
your
captured. Taylor, hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Are you wearing a hockey, like a Stars, Dallas Stars
No,
sweater?
God, could you imagine if I knew that the Dallas Stars were a hockey team?
I just
No, it's got like a big tiger on it,
okay.
a big pink tiger. No.
I like it. It's very you.
Thank you. Thank you.
How's your weekend been?
Good. Girl Scout season is officially done. We sold all of our cookies as a troop, and I'm very excited not to have to do that anymore.
You're relieved, aren't you?
I am.
It's good. It's good to be a supportive parent, but it's good that things end too.
Yeah, exactly. We had two softball games so far. We lost both of them, but that's okay because we're trying really hard.
It's
And that's
about the fact that you tried.
exactly.
A
Exactly.
secret.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Cool. Well, oh, hello. Welcome to Doom to Fail. We bring you history's most notorious disasters and epic failures. I am Taylor, joined as always by Fars.
Yes, I'm here as well. That's the voice that you hear opposite Taylor every day.
And how was your weekend, Fars?
It was good. I was doing South by Southwest stuff and
Oh, is
entertaining
it
my
now?
brother. Yeah, it just ended. I guess today's the last day.
Cool.
So yeah, Austin's gonna go back to normal briefly. eh, I mean, very, very briefly because my trip season is starting, and so the routine's gonna get thrown for a whirl again.
Your trip season?
Yeah, I got to do much. I got to go to Canada a couple of times. I got to do DC trips, stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah, it's great when you're 40 and your back hurts. It's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds
And
super
planes are
fun.
falling out of the sky left and right. It's awesome.
They haven't in a while.
Do you think they haven't in a while, or do you think big airline got to the news and was like, "Stop reporting this"?
I feel like we would know if it I don't know. I mean, it is hard to capture all of the bad things that are happening in the news cycle. So I guess it could be.
Yeah.
I
Hopefully
don't know.
that stops occurring right as I start flying a lot more. So that'd be
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, good for you.
Sweet. Well, I think today's a you start us day.
It is.
Sweet.
I am ready. It is 'cause it's still Women's History Month. Will it be next week? Yes. Will it be the week after that? No. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll do two more. Anyway, today, yeah, well, last time I talked about a piece of crap woman from World War II, and so did you.
Yeah,
It's
weird, right?
too bad he is. Too real fucking
We
bad.
didn't even coordinate that, people. That was like just total happenstance that we did that.
Um, and this week I'm gonna talk about a really freaking amazing woman from World War II that you probably had not have not heard of, because a lot of her stuff is secret because she was a spy.
Oh, damn. Okay. I thought it was like the White Roses or something, but I guess not.
No, I'll probably talk about them eventually. I know you said you did that too, right? You researched it a little bit?
I researched them a little. I realized it was like a huge, huge topic, and it was like one of
Yeah.
those things where you gotta like plan like several weeks in advance for it. So
Yeah, I think one of us should do it. 'Cause it is cool.
yeah,
It is cool.
it's a great story.
Um, but no, I'm talking about an American woman who did a lot of awesome stuff during World War II. And again and again, things were hard for her because she was a woman and people like didn't think she could do it. And also, she was disabled. She only had one leg. She had a fake leg on one of her legs. And so the fact that she did all she did is really remarkable, and I'll tell you about that. But it's hard to get everything that she did because she was a spy. So a lot of it we'll never know, but it's really cool. So I'm going to tell you about Virginia Hall. That's her name.
Fun.
So Virginia Hall was born on April 6th, 1906 in Baltimore, Maryland. So her mother had married her boss and like had a really nice life and was like, this is the thing to do. The thing to do is to like find an old rich man and marry him,
Yeah,
which is
and
not
Nicole
bad
Smith
advice.
figured that out.
Yeah. There's worse advice you can get from someone.
Absolutely.
So she her mom wanted the same thing for Virginia. She was basically like, why don't you find someone nice to marry and then, you'll be able to have a lot of money and be settled. Virginia had an older brother that was like, kind of went off and was a business person, but she really didn't want to do that. That was not something that Virginia would have like just easily done. She loved to travel. She loved to do things like boy things with her dad, like hunt and fish and spend time in the wilderness. And so she really didn't want to do the things that her mom wanted her to do. She wanted to do like a little bit different. She went to Radcliffe, like Helen Keller, but like 20 years later, and then Barnard, and then she went to college in Europe to kind of finish her college years. So they were like kind of like the middle class that you can be where you can send your kids to college in Europe.
That's pretty upper
Yeah, that's
middle.
what I mean. Like upper, I think. So she went to Europe and she traveled. She learned 5 languages. She's super smart. She spoke Spanish, Italian, Russian, French, and English and German. No, did she speak German? Maybe she didn't speak German, which is weird. She spoke Spanish, Italian, Russian, French, and English. Whatever. She learned a lot of languages. She probably spoke some German. And
You ever
she
you ever
loved,
you ever see that one meme where it's like, what's one thing that if a poor person does it, it's trashy, but if a rich person does it, it's classy? Knowing a lot of languages.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Sorry, continue.
Exactly. So she loved being in Europe, except, she could see that there was something rumbling, like fascism starting, and she was trying to figure out what to do with her life. She got engaged a few times, kind of like dated around, but she didn't end up getting married while she was like in her 20s. In the stock market crash in the US, her dad lost all of his money and he ended up dying of a heart attack at age 59. So now her mom was even more like, girl, you got to come home and get married to someone rich. We need you as a family. But she said no to that and she went back to Europe and she got a job with the US State Department in Warsaw. And she kind of had a lot of these jobs that she's going to get are like secretary jobs, which is like a totally fine job to have, but not what she wanted. And she wasn't able to get any other jobs. Like they wouldn't promote her, they wouldn't do other things because she was a woman.
Also, fun fact, coming from someone who's like older at this point, take the shitty job. Take the shitty job and then prove yourself once you get in the building, then get the job you want. That's how you do it. You don't just like sign up one day and it's like, I want to be the boss. Like it doesn't work that
Totally.
way.
Totally. Totally. So when she was 27, she got a new, like moved jobs, but stayed in the State Department, moved to Turkey. So it's 1933, and she likes it in Turkey better than she liked Warsaw. She's in a spot that has like a lot of like nature, and she makes a bunch of friends, and they're able to go and just kind of have a good time, even though she still has a secretary job that she doesn't really love. So with her friends, they go out hunting, and she has a gun that her dad had given her when she was little, and she took it with her to Europe because you could just like take your gun to Europe with you.
Before 9/11, things were different.
And so her and her friends are sh out shooting birds like you do, and they're like in this like swampy marshland area, and Virginia is running to catch a bird, and there's a fence, and she's climbing over the fence, and her gun gets kind of stuck in her coat, and she accidentally shoots herself in the leg. So before this, she had 2 legs. But now she's 27 and she's in Turkey and she just shot herself in the leg. The doctor that she goes to, um, they are like, we think we can save it. Like, we're going to try. And by the time that the American doctors got there to help her, her foot had gangrened and they had to cut it off below the knee. So that's how she became an amputee. She shot herself in the foot.
Which kind of makes her more qualified for a lot of things, I think. Because like if you can go through that, then you can go through a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And so she was obviously devastated because like she went home and her mom was like, this is time to stay home now. Like this is you can't go back. But she really wanted to go back and she got a fake leg put on so she would walk with a little bit of a limp. But also it's like a horror. It's not like a nice 2025 fake leg. It is a terrible 1930 fake leg that is like hollow metal that's like attached to her like knee stub with like straps that attach to a corset around her waist. So it's like super uncomfortable. It hurts. It bleeds all the time. It's just like absolutely awful.
It's like barely better than like a pirate's
Yes.
leg.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And she calls it Cuthbert. She names it Cuthbert. Her
Cute.
little fake leg. So she tries to join the foreign services as a diplomat, which is hard for women to do anyway because like they didn't really want women to do that, but she couldn't because she was an amputee and the State Department not the State Department the Foreign Service Department doesn't allow people with disabilities to join, which is, you know, interesting because her plea to join got all the way to FDR, but FDR said no from his wheelchair that she
That
couldn't do it.
is that is a little bit of irony.
Yeah. So she's like, fuck this. I want to do something more than this. Like, I don't want to just sit around like transcribing like memos all day long in as a secretary here. I can do more. I know I can do more despite my disability. Obviously, like I can do more. So she quits working for the United States and joins up with France as an ambulance driver because she can drive, she speaks French, and they don't even ask her about her leg because who cares? She can drive, you know? So
It
it's not
was
a
her
big deal.
left leg she lost.
Actually, don't know,
Okay.
but either way,
I mean, if
she.
she starts driving with her
I mean,
right leg,
I think you'd figure it out pretty fast.
I guess so. If you only have, yeah, okay, fine, fine.
So but either way,
But
she figured it
also,
out. James.
also, hold on, sorry, I'm not gonna try to belabor this. But back then, weren't cars manuals?
Maybe, but she can still move her legs. She can still
Oh,
drive.
that's right. She can still move it. It's just like
You
she can't
know?
really articulate. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, she has her fake leg, and it's just like it sucks and it hurts, but she can move it,
got
so
it.
she can definitely drive.
Oddly enough, she was qualified for a lot of jobs more than this that they could have just given her. But yes,
Exactly, totally, exactly. But she gets this job, and she likes it. France is being occupied slowly by the Germans. And they needed her to be in there. So this is where fate steps in for our dear Virginia. She's almost 30. She's living in France as an ambulance driver, and she's going to Spain to visit some friends. She can travel pretty easily because she's American. And like America hasn't joined the war yet. People are still kind of pretending that things are okay, even though things are like not okay and like getting worse. And she's on her way to Spain and she's on the train and she meets a man named George Bellows, who happens to be a British intelligence officer. And he likes her right away. She's smart, she's funny, she's pretty, she is an American, like I just said, so she can move back and forth really easily. And he's like, you know what? We can get you a better job than the job that you have. Like we can absolutely use you in England. So he gives her a phone number and says, this is a friend. Call this number and they'll help you get a job. And so she had tried to like find other jobs and she couldn't really find one that she liked. So she decides to call the number and it goes to a man named Nicholas Boddington, who is the man who started the Special Operations Executive, which is called the SOE, which is a brand new spy group coming out of England. It's different than MI6 in like different ways, but it's very, 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 very similar. And she's like James Bond spy style now.
so this would have been like late 30s,
Yeah,
early 40s. Okay,
late 30s. Yeah. Yeah. So she gets the job. And of course, also, they didn't want to let her in because she's a woman and all the things. But like, this is a job that like a lot of people like didn't know how to do and they didn't know what was going to happen. So it was so dangerous to even like think of being a spy for the British in World War II that a lot of people didn't do it. So like, she was one of the few applicants. She was very qualified, super smart, spoke all languages, all the things. She gets to go through fun training, like um, they interrogate her in German and like try to scare her, like they're the Gestapo, and they do all these things. She learns how to do things like hide papers in various holes in her body. Um, I wrote training was intense, and she learned how to put papers in her butthole because that's what she did. Um, and so it was assumed that like she would go into France, maybe get a little bit of information from what was going on the ground in France, if there was any resistance, things like that. And it was assumed that she probably wasn't going to make it back by like her superiors. They didn't tell her that, but that was like the idea. They didn't think that she would be there
that
for
was
long.
like I forgot which was it the Vietnam War where they're just like we're printing purple medals left and right because it's like we're assuming they're going to give away like a million of these things.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. So she has to get into France and she's able to get in by pretending to be a reporter for the New York Post. And the New York Post did give her a job. So she had like a legit job that was like through SOE, but if you followed the paper trail, she worked for the New York Post. And she is largely on her own. So they kind of were like, go and see what you could find out. And she would communicate back to England by like coded postcards and by her articles that were in the New York Post. They would have like things in there about birds that meant this was happening or people were moving and things like that. Um, she is going to spend 15 months in France, creating like a huge resistance network, and called it the heckler circuit. So she was really going in and like changing things. So I'm going to tell you what she did while she was there. Um, she goes to Lyon, which is like a city in France, and when she gets there, she's like they give her money and are like, good luck, you know? So she like walks around parts of France for a while, travels around, finally gets to Lyon. She doesn't have anywhere to stay. She can't find a hotel room. She ends up going to finding a convent like the top of a hill and being like, can you please help me? And they let her in. And those nuns become like a real important part of her spy group, just like the nuns in Sound of Music.
That's really fun.
Isn't that fun?
I keep
Um,
picturing this stuff. I don't know why. It's just always like baguettes are everywhere and like everybody's having a great time, but they're probably not because they're being tortured and watching hell unfold in front of them.
yeah, it's not great. And so actually, so other things that she does while she's there, like I just wanted to mention that she learns how to change her appearance and like blend in like a spy movie, which is also really, really fun. But she's in Lyon, and yeah, to that point, it's not things aren't going well. World War One just ended, you know, like barely, and people aren't like prosperous in France. It's not great in France either, you know. How we talked about how like Europe isn't doing great. They just had a war, and now they're about to have another one.
I know. I just keep
And
picturing like the countryside of Lyon, France,
I'm
and
sure it's like,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
It's
there's
just
beautiful
like
mountains and all
do
that
do you
stuff.
really need like a lot of like really rich things when you could just have great milk and great baguettes?
Yeah, but like who's that? Who you're saying that to? France?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. They're going through a lot.
They're going
Never
through a
mind.
lot.
Never
I
mind.
think that they're I
I keep
think that
romanticizing this era for some
yeah,
reason, and I
no.
don't know why.
I think that like even I think that like being a peasant farmer in is like being a peasant farmer again, you know? Like it's not
It's
good.
true. Fair.
You know, it's not going to be people are kind of don't know what to do. Um and you know that like bad things are happening all over Europe as well. You can like, you know, Hitler's in charge now, so they know these things are happening. So she also meets some other people to be a part of her spy ring. One cool character is a woman named Germaine Garand, and she was a madame at a brothel. And she would always like do things like hide Jewish people in her house and like in her brothel so that, you know, obviously they couldn't get taken away. And the sex workers who worked for her would do like super awesome things. Like they had a doctor that was part of the group who would say like, "Oh yeah, none of these girls have STDs. Everything's fine," when they definitely did. And they would like give the Germans STDs.
Oh, I was like, that's not good health care for
No,
those
no, no.
women.
No, no, no. It was to like infiltrate with the Nazis and like do stuff to hurt them. They would drug them, like the Nazis that would come to the brothel, they would drug them and then like take pictures of what was in their pockets after they had fallen asleep. They would while if they fell asleep, they would drip poison in their eyeballs so that their vision would be impaired. They wouldn't be able to be pilots anymore. Isn't that awesome?
Intense.
I know. Because like the Gestapo's everywhere now. Charles de Gaulle, like the airport, he is in the UK and trying to start the resistance, but like Nazis are taking over France, like very, very slowly. And France is like, sure, just don't hurt us. So a lot of like the local governments are like, would report you to the Gestapo if something happened because they're like, we just need to like
Not
let
piss
this
them
happen.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, let this happen. So she England is like, okay, this is working. She has getting a network, things are happening, so they decide to send more people from the SOE into France, and they do things like they just drop people out of planes and hope for the best. So they parachute like into a random field, like with their radio, like hoping that they don't get caught. But a lot of them do get caught when they just like land in a random field or like in the middle of a random town. Like you never know where they're gonna be. And the ones who are radio operators, they're the ones who are really, really in demand because if you have a radio, you can like Morse code back to England and let them know what's happening. But they're trying, so a lot of these guys are trying to get to Virginia, but like don't know where she is when they get dropped off, like in the middle of the night. She, um, at some point, there's like 17 or so other SOE agents in France, and they decide to meet up at a safe house because like they're also very lonely. Like that's part of it too. That oh, I read a book called The Woman of No Importance that I'll share, but like you know, it's a lonely job and it's weird because you always have to be like looking over your shoulder and like you're making friends and like trying to like judge if people are safe to talk to and like you're always working. And so a bunch of agents decide to meet up in at a house in Marseille, and they get found by the Gestapo like immediately. So one of the guys that had been captured right when he landed, like in his parachute, had a map to the safe house in his pocket, which was really stupid of the SOE to do that. And so these 17 other agents get arrested immediately. And Virginia was supposed to go, but she had a weird feeling and didn't go, which was like the right thing to do. to not attend that party. And then let's put a pin in that. We'll talk about those guys in a little bit later. So she's working for the SOE. She's living in Lyon, and what does she do all day? She fights Nazis all day. That's what she does. She knows the Nazis are taking food to Germany while the French people are starving. That's it. That's a thing too, as well. The Germans are stealing the food. And she would do stuff like in packages of meat, put like one rotten piece of meat in it, so it would make it all rotten. And they would like put water in cereal. They would poke holes in tin cans, add salt to sugar, like things like that, just to, like make the food that they were bringing over to Germany worthless as well. She would walk around. She would walk around meeting people in cafes. But to get there, she'd have to take like 17 lefts and a right and like climb over something and like just really like they couldn't follow her. They couldn't really know who she was. So she did a lot of like secret spy stuff, which is super scary because again, like around every corner there's like a German yelling. You can imagine like in
Right.
in these towns. So there are a couple men that are sent to be her boss, but they aren't as good as her. Like she's just better at it than they are. So she's sort of unofficially in charge of this area. They never actually make her the boss, but she's like better. There's a guy named Alan who is there as well, and he like literally lies and says he has thousands of people on his team and he doesn't, so she's definitely like way better than anyone else at doing this. So a couple of fun stories from her 15 months in Lyon. There was one person another SAOE agent who was in jail, and she gave him tablets to make him sick, and then he got sent to a hospital and had surgery, like unnecessary surgery on his stomach because he didn't really have a stomach problem by a doctor who was in her group. He did like the most minimal surgery that he could, but he actually did it. And then while he's in the hospital, a nurse helped him escape out a window. So like she was doing stuff like that. Everybody had like cyanide pills in their mouths like at all times, like pills that you could like swallow and then like you wouldn't die, but if you bit it, you would die. So they had like all kinds of stuff like that, like with them at all times. People really needed soap. That was a big thing as well. That everybody was like super dirty because if you get parachuted into the middle of France, you don't have you don't have anywhere to go, so people were kind of just walking around. At some point, the Nazis start to figure out that there is someone in Lyon who is running this like spy network, but they don't have any idea that it's a woman. And they were like, they just obviously just assumed that it was a man. She finally got a radio operator, but he had been parachuted 150 miles from where she was. So he was like dropped at the wrong spot, and he walked around France for a month until he found her. Like he couldn't like ask for her. He just had to like walk around and like figure it out. He ended up finding a radio that someone else had hidden and was able to then start sending messages back to England, and that was really, really helpful. Even though they have a radio and they're doing like I mean, obviously it's sending the mail takes forever, but a Morse code message, if you sent it to England, you would expect about like an hour and a half before they could write back to you because they had to like they'd like first they had to convert the Morse code into words, and then it was obviously in code on top of that code. So it's like decode it, and then they had to write something to you, and then recode it, and then Morse code it back to you. So it took a while.
I still use Google Maps to go to my neighborhood grocery store.
Yeah, no, I could not find you if we were.
No.
Okay, so basically these dudes are just like falling out of the sky trying to find her in France so that she can help them like do other things. She had like a flower pot on her windowsill that she would move around to be like, I'm available, I'm not available, things like that. It wasn't always like it was fun, obviously, like to think about, but also obviously super dangerous. Her and most of the spies were also on a lot of drugs, like uppers and downers, because sometimes she had to be awake for days at a time, like helping people like move things and do things. Sometimes she would like, have to sleep, things like that. So remember her friends that were taken that all went, I mean, her friends, like the other SOE guys who were all got taken at that house. So now she wants to get them out of jail. And when I say jail, I mean they're in like a concentration camp and sort of, and they are very, very malnourished. They can't really run out of jail even if she like got the door open. They need to be able to like get more, you know, get get stronger. They ended up getting moved out of like the collection concentration camp that they were in and moved to a prison, like an actual prison where they're able to like kind of put on some weight and like start to like be human again. And then she starts to try to get them out. So she has people going in to visit them and doing things like, putting a file in a book and hiding it. And like piece by piece, they're able to get the guys enough stuff so that they can start working on how to get out. They need to make a key. So they like take the key and they make a mold in bread and then like melt stuff down and make the key so that they can like get
That's
their
real. I thought that
get
was like a
out.
Looney Tunes thing.
I know, it's real. So they need to go out. They got a guard to help them. So a lot of people are like, secretly part of the resistance. So a guard is going to help them. They have to run in two stages from like their cell to a guard tower and then out through barbed wire fences to like actually get out. And it had to be super fast when they got out. So they did things like they painted a door on a piece of cloth to hang over the door so that it looked like the door was closed. 'Cause I guess their door like wouldn't stay closed, so they wanted to make it so you couldn't easily tell that they were gone. The way that Virginia worked it out is that if like an old lady walked past the jail at night, then it was good. If it had been a man, it would have been a no. So it was like little secret things like that, and they put a sleeping potion on one of the guards or whatever. Somehow got the guard to pass out, and then another guard that was supposed to help them. He ended up like chickening out. So another guard, like there was a signal where he like lit a cigarette, and that was a signal for the guys to run. So they run, and they're making a lot of noise. And while they're doing running and making a lot of noise, another guard that they didn't know that like wasn't in cahoots with them stopped them, and they're like, "Oh my God!" And he goes, "Is this the English? Stop making so much noise." So like all the guards were trying to help them get out. You know.
Nice.
So it took them 12 minutes, but they got out, and then after they left, like someone else in the jail cleaned everything up, so you couldn't really tell how they had gotten out. And like one of the wives who had been bringing them stuff, like she was out of town, so she had an alibi, all the things. They sent information over the airwaves that the men were back in England, so that's where the Germans thought that they were, but they actually were just in a cabin in the woods in France, and they ended up getting better and getting out. So that was super fun. She didn't say that it was her that did it, but everyone knew that like she was the one who had done all the stuff for them. A lot of her stuff was being like, don't talk about it, obviously, because she's a spy.
I would
So
so talk about it. I would tell everyone.
I know.
But
She
you know what I
actually,
just did? It
yeah,
was the
she
coolest
does
shit
not.
ever.
I know. She doesn't tell anyone, which is a bummer. I wish she would have written a book and she did not. Like that's kind of her story. So okay, so now the Germans know that she's there. They know she's a woman, like somehow, and they call her the Limping Lady of Lyon, but they can't find her. And I kind of feel like I could find a limping person, but that's just me.
Just walk around and kick everyone in the shins, and the one that doesn't yelp, that's
Yeah,
her.
exactly. So I just trip a bunch of women until you find her. Um, but they don't. They know she's there, but they can't find her. She also did, make friends with people that she shouldn't have trusted. There is one man who his name is Robert Alesh, and he is a German spy. He came in as a priest, and like he had a German accent, but he was from like, just from the border between France and Germany. And a lot of people were suspicious of him, but they let him in and they trusted him, even though they thought he was weird. And that was just like a huge mistake, and a lot of people died because of the stuff that he had told the Nazis. At the end of the war, he will eventually be executed in Paris, but it didn't come soon enough. He did fuck some stuff up for her. So now she has to leave France because there's no neutral zone. She's basically been in the unoccupied zone this entire time, not in like Paris where the Germans have like actually taken over. So now France has totally fallen to the Nazis and she has to leave. But she can't just leave because now they know they're waiting like at the train stations, obviously, for this woman to leave. They're trying to figure out how to get her out, and she decides to go to Spain on foot. So she walks over the Pyrenees Mountains with a guide in the winter. So it's snowing
With
and
one leg.
with one leg. It's a 7,500 feet like elevation climb, and then 50 miles they walk in just 2 days. And like her leg is like bleeding, and like the people she's with don't know that she has a fake leg. She just like goes. She sent before she left, she sent a telegram or sent like a message to England and said that Cuthbert is being tiresome because obviously like her leg hurts and is bleeding and it's awful. And the person who got that message didn't know that she called her fake leg Cuthbert, and she wrote back and said, they wrote back, if Cuthbert is troublesome, eliminate him. Just funny.
That is
Um,
what like the head of a spy agency would say.
yes, exactly. Exactly. So she does escape. She walks over the mountains and she goes to Spain and she gets another desk job because like even through this, they don't get want to give her a good job, which is super annoying. But they're also, I think, fairly like you've been compromised. They know who you are. They're looking for you, you know? So like, you cannot go back to France as part of the SOE. There's just no way. So she is like, well, fuck that. I need to go back to France. Like my whole thing is like liberating France from the Nazis. It's all I want to do. Let me go back. They won't let her go back. She's like, what if I'm a radio operator? You need radio operators. They're like, no. She's like, fine. So she puts herself through radio operator school and learns how to be a radio operator. Now she's like, I am so valuable right now. I know all these people. I speak French. I can do the radio now. Like, let me back in. And the SOE says no. And so she joins the OSS, which is the American version of it. So they finally let her in to the American side, and they're fine with it. They're like, "You can go to France. Great, go." So she goes back to France to prep for D-Day. So what she does when she goes back is obviously they're looking for her. They know there's like this limping spy woman. So she makes herself look old. She'll like draw on wrinkles every day. She dyes her hair gray. She learns to walk differently, so she doesn't have a limp anymore. She has like a shuffle, and she looks like an 80-year-old woman, even though she's like 35. And she dresses like a peasant, and she has her teeth filed down so that she looks like a peasant also.
Just
And there's like
retire. Just like hang out and retire. Like I,
she
man.
just really wanted to do this, man. And so another thing that is fun is like the people who were spying, like in Inglourious Basterds, when that guy does the three the wrong way,
Oh yeah.
and they knew he was a spy, you know? Like I knew immediately because I've been to Germany and I know that's how you do a three. Like I like, was very like yes, like so the stuff like that like the way that your buttons are sewn on, there's a French way and then there's a German way. So you have to like make sure you're doing it the right way. You have to, as a spy, just like know so many of these like little tiny things, which is like you wouldn't think of it. Some people get caught as spies because they do stupid shit, like they, do the number three the wrong way, and then you can tell that you're not French, like you're not who
Right.
you say you are. So she does all this stuff. She actually becomes a farmer. She has a cow. She sells produce. At one point, she sells cheese that she made to the Nazis. Hopefully, she poisoned it. I don't know if she did, but hopefully she did. But
Seems
like,
likely.
but like, so she's actually like doing that. And her American counterpart at this time, I wrote, he was kind of a boob. There's like a good handful of boobs around, just like guys who just like don't help.
Right.
But is she gets her radio to work by getting a farm boy to ride a bike and like start a generator. So like they'll like, do a generator, then she can have her radio work. And the radios aren't like iPhones. The radios are like 40-pound boxes, and you have to have this like the antenna, you have to like strap it to the top of a house. So it's not easy.
Yeah. It's also probably something that if you knew what you were looking for, you would know what they were doing in there.
Exactly. One cool way that they would find the radio operators is the Germans would, in bigger cities, shut down the electricity block by block while listening to the radio transmission. So when the radio transmission stopped, they knew that was the block that had the radio.
Oh, that's pretty smart.
Isn't that smart? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So then they would raid that block, and a lot of people would be like raided, and then they would like they heard it was coming, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm just a regular French guy, leave me alone." But they were like hiding the radio in their attic and like doing things like that just to make sure that they were doing it. So a little bit in her second time in France, people were a little bit like, "Okay, is this lady legit?" She's like trying to get us to join her resistance. Like, is she really from the OSS? Is she really from America? Like, what is happening? And then finally, she gets some planes to come and bring them supplies. And this is super cool. So they make a runway in like a field out of burning sticks, like in Die Hard 2.
I
When he's
d- don't remember that.
in Die Hard 2, he does that. He like makes it out of the like a gas streak from a plane that had already crashed because of the. It's a very complicated airport story, but it's really good. You should watch it. I just watched it recently. Um, But so they do that, and all of a sudden, planes start coming. They do 22 drops of supplies for everybody in this area. They drop cool things like um, tea and medicine and money and socks and shoes. You don't have, at this point in the war, people don't have anything, like they have nothing. They are wearing shoes out of cardboard. It's like not good, you know? And so she's be able to get all this stuff. When they would drop the containers of stuff, they would dip their wings to say hi and then fly back to England, which is cute,
Nice.
you know? So she's able to do things like that. And with that stuff and the people that she had got to join her, they would do more fun stuff against the Nazis, like derailing trains and and stopping food from going, things like that, just like she was doing before, but on like a mass scale.
Yeah.
Um, and then remember the Gestapo's everywhere, and they're starting to get scared too because the war is like coming to an end. So they're getting more violent and weirder, and people are going to die. Like a lot of her associates die. A lot of these people end up in camps. There's these two like young men that she works with a lot, and she like really loves them. She calls them her nephews. She loves being with them. They're brothers, and they both die in Dachau. So like this is, you know, people around her dying all the time, but Virginia is doesn't happen to her. Um, while she's in France, she meets an OSS agent named Paul Guillot. He is 5 inches shorter than her and 8 years younger than her, and they fall in love. And so she's finally able to like, you know, kind of have someone to like talk to, you know, even. And at one point, he like has his friends meet her, but she is dressed like an old peasant lady. Her friends are like, "What the hell's wrong?
What are
What?
you doing?
Like, why are you dating this 80-year-old woman?" So like, and then like later after the war, when the friends saw her, they were like, "Whoa, like I didn't realize that you were not that you
A
did
haggard old woman.
yeah, did such a good job." Um, so the France is now Allied occupied, but the war isn't over. They're still waiting for Germany to surrender, and so her and Paul go to Austria to start to do like anti-Nazi stuff there. But then the Germans surrender, and she ends up going back to Paris. When Paris is liberated, and kind of writing things down and just making like her last couple reports to the OSS, and then she resigns in 1945. So she doesn't stay in the OSS. She leaves kind of like right away. She wants to go back to, well, her mom wants her back in the United States. And by the way, this whole time, her mom is like, my daughter's probably dead.
Yeah,
You
yeah, of
know,
course.
like every once in a while, she'll get like a telegram from the SOE that'll be like, your daughter's doing great. She's still alive. But like, they barely know that too either, you know? So her mom wants her to go back. She goes, and Paul wants to open a restaurant, which he ends up doing, even though it doesn't turn out very well. So her mom doesn't approve of them because he's younger than her. But you're like, what? And she's like 40. So
Yeah,
like
who
let her do
gives a
whatever
shit?
she wants to do.
She's
Um,
killed men. Like,
for real. So they like don't live together until 1957 when they get married. They try to adopt a child, but it doesn't work out, and they end up with a bunch of dogs. They like those like big brown poodles. You know what I mean? Those are their favorite. They have a bunch of those.
another point for dog lovers.
I know, another plus. In 1947, she joins the CIA, which is like the brand new as well. Um, in her career, people are always going to be like, "But you're a woman, you can't do stuff," even though she was like one of the most successful spies that they had in France during the war. Um, she would stay in the CIA until she was 60. In That was when you have to retire. So you can't work there. You can't be older than 60 to work there. While she was in the CSA, she worked on secret paramilitary operations in France to like her model of creating resistance groups was studied by other groups who were working on setting up resistance in European countries against a Soviet attack and against communism. So they were like they were following her kind of like as a role model of what she had done. Later, the CIA released a report about her and said that her fellow office she had like a very low ranking officer title, and her fellow officers said, quote, they felt that she had been sidelined, shunted into backwater accounts because she had so much experience that she overshadowed her male colleagues who felt threatened by her, and her experience and abilities were never properly utilized. So they didn't let her be a boss, even though she should have been for a bunch of different shitty reasons. She did end up with a bunch of awards. She got the Distinguished Service Cross in September 1945 from the United States. This is the only one awarded to a civilian woman in World War II. She became an official member of the Order of the British Empire, which is a big award you get in Britain, and she was awarded the Croix de Guerre, which is the something cross by France, which is like their highest military, one of their highest military honors as well. And she didn't tell anybody about it, about that one. And they found out later, like in her papers, that she had gotten it, but like she didn't tell anybody that she got that award. She really didn't like go after any of that recognition. Um, in 2016, just a couple more awards about her. Um, a CIA field agent training facility was named the Virginia Hall Expeditionary Center, which is fun. The CIA Museum, if you go there, there are five people who have individual like exhibits at the museum. Four of them are men who went on to head the CIA, and one of them is Virginia.
Nice.
So they talk about her there, yeah, which is super cool. Um, Later in life, her health, was failing after probably a lot because a lot of the drugs that she did during the war like really fucked with her kind of forever. And she died on July 8th, 1982 in Maryland, where she is buried, and Paul is buried with her. He died 5 years later. And then after her death, a lot of like the research that the person who wrote A Woman of No Importance did and that people do about her is like going in and finding things and declassifying things and trying to find, notes. There's probably so much stuff that she did that we don't even know about, you know?
Yeah, what you were saying, it reminded me of. So she sounds like a very modest and humble person,
Hmm.
which also just does not bode well for career advancement.
Yeah,
Like
that's true.
one of like the, I mean, not, it, it's not a consistent argument, but like men are more apt to like talk about the shit they
Yeah,
do and than women are, and like that's like a byproduct. I mean, she didn't write a book. She didn't like it.
yeah,
It's interesting.
yeah, yeah, exactly, totally. And yeah, that's a good point because like she wasn't getting the promotions and things, and there were men who were getting them, and a lot of them, some of the examples used in the book were like lying about what they were doing anyway. Like they didn't have the people that they said they did, and she did, but she wasn't like
Yeah,
advertising it.
isn't it like something like if you're like the leader of an organization, you're like dramatically higher. You have a dramatically higher percentage likelihood of being a psychopath or something than the regular
Probably,
population,
probably.
or
I
like a
think there's probably
narcissist or something. I forgot what it was, but
yeah, definitely something. Definitely, you know, it takes a lot of other things besides doing a good job to get up to those positions.
right,
You
exactly.
know. But yeah, that's her story, and I think it's so fun that she like walked over the mountains, and did all those like little sabotage things. Like I can just picture her like limping around Lyon in the middle of the night, like finding food and poking holes in it, you know?
Yeah, even now, like I looked, like there's not that much. There's not like a movie about her.
I know. Isn't that crazy? Do you think there should
But
be?
then it's like, it sounds like they don't have any content to go
I
off of
mean,
because she didn't say anything.
you could figure it out. You could do a whole
Yeah,
she was
give it to Quentin Tarantino, he'll figure it out.
yeah, like
Um,
she was in Lyon for 15 months and there's a bunch of people that she met and moved in and out of her apartment and in and out of her world and like so there you could show her meeting someone at a cafe and then climbing out a window because the Gestapo was there, or you could see her, show her people showing up at her apartment in the middle of the night, stinky and poor and having to prove who they are to her.
I do love a good spy movie, so I
Yeah.
would totally be in favor of that. I think there's a new one coming out, Black Bag. Looks pretty
Hmm.
good. Um, Very fun, very cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing a woman that is not terrible,
You're welcome.
because I'm gonna be doing the opposite. I'm gonna be sharing one that is terrible.
Great.
Um, cool. Anything? Any listener mail?
Um, I got another email for a sticker, so thank you, Kim. I sent you your sticker. I appreciate you.
Very nice. Thank
Hmm.
you. Please write in if you would like to get a sticker as well. A
Yeah.
pod@gmail.com. Follow us on the socials on pod. I think that's mostly it.
Yeah, that's all I got. Cool.
All right. Well, thanks for
Well,
sharing.
thanks. Okay, bye.
Alrighty, we'll go ahead and cut it off. Uh,